Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today for this incredible history lesson session. Hey, Benita. So I just have to tell you, I recently took my mom to see Six, and I knew the Mega Six was coming, and I turned to look at her, and she's crying. And I was like, "Are you crying?" And she goes, "Yes." And I said, "Why are you crying?" She goes, "I'm just so happy that they turned it all around and celebrated themselves instead." It's like,
It's a really
Mom.
twist. I know. Without that ending, the show is just a concert.
So, and actually, it's funny because I'm a huge Tudors fan, and my mom was asking me about why some wives were just divorced over why some ended up dying. And so, how is it decided, like, which parts of their history would go into the show? Like, we definitely need to tell this one. This one's like, man, not so much. Like, what was that process like?
Well, the construct of the show is it's this competition. It's both a girl group made up of the six wives. It's like a Beyonce concert with this group, but they're also competing for who had the worst time with Henry. So we start with that lens. Each of them is telling their story in order to try and win of what they went through, because these women went through it. And so those are the pieces of the story that the writers went to first, and also finding things that would translate nicely into a musical, into pop songs.
And it's a runtime of about a tight 80 minutes. And I know there can be some people who are daunted by theater if it has a run long time. Are you hoping that this will expose people perhaps to theater that they wouldn't have considered before? Was that intentional to keep it that runtime?
Yeah, we get so many people coming in who have never seen a musical before, and I feel like it's the perfect gateway musical because it's part concert, part musical. So if you've never seen anything, firstly, it's short, which is great. It's so much fun. You'll definitely laugh. You'll definitely bop. And for people who are like diehard music theatre fans, it's something really different. The format is really different to your standard book musical. You know, from the moment we start, the curtain parts and the queens come out through the mist, and like the bass is hitting you, and it's a really exciting like concert experience.
And it's also it's completely all female on stage. It's an all female band as well. So it's just like girl power to the 10th degree.
Female and non-binary. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. So we've got our band of four on stage who we call the ladies in waiting. One of my favorite little historical things is that they're all in the script named after real life ladies in waiting who were ladies in waiting for the queens. Yeah. So we've got Bessie on the bass, who is named after Bessie Blount, who was not only a lady in waiting, but one of Henry's mistresses who he had an illegitimate son with. It gets messy, but I love all those little details.
Can people like find that information perhaps in the playbill? Is it maybe on the website, like for super historical buffs who want to like do a deeper dive?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of info in the program about each of the queens. There's a little historical breakdown. You can also, there's the wiki, the Six wiki that you can look up that has a lot of info. And then I think there's some references in there that you wouldn't understand unless you were just a diehard history nerd, which I kind of like. There's a bit of everything. There's some things that the first time you hear it, you get, and there's some things that you don't understand until you catch it the third time. You go, oh my goodness, I never knew that.
Is there a historical reference or rumor that you didn't know before that kind of surprised you to learn?
Oh, there's so much. Probably two of my favorites. One, so there's this line in the show that Catherine Parr sings, who's the final wife. And she sings, "Remember that I was a writer. I wrote books and psalms and meditations." Yeah. And like, not only was she a writer, she was actually the first woman published in England with like a book with her name on it, published in England. So like, not only was she a writer, she was like the trailblazing female writer.
Wow. Gold star, yeah. Kathy Parr.
I know. So I love that. And then like the whole Cleves story is like one of my favorite. The more I read about Cleves, like historically, she was, okay, so the story goes, Henry was looking for his fourth wife at that time and run out of women to marry, got his painter friend Hans Holbein, who's like the preeminent painter at the time, sent him out to paint some portraits of women because we didn't have dating apps. And so he brings back these portraits, and one of them is of Anna of Cleves. And Henry's like, great, I'll marry her. She arrives, and the story goes that she was not as attractive in person as she was in her portrait. And so Henry was like, this isn't going to work. We're going to get divorced, all this stuff. But so like this idea that she's this like spurned woman, she's been put down, she's been like ridiculed. But the more you dig into historical accounts, like it just doesn't match up with like her experience. She's been described as like the happiest woman in the Tudor court. She like won out. She ended up with a castle and half his wealth. And there's this great story of this banquet that Henry threw where like he was like grumpy and sick and tired, and he went to bed because his leg ulcers were hurting, and Cleves was up all night partying with his new wife, Kay Howard, like dancing the night away. And it's like, that's not a rejected, spurned woman. She was like turning up to court being like, hey, how we going, Henry?
Right.
So it's one of my favorites.
And I think I also love, like, as someone who is a Tudor fan, I could appreciate some of the specific references, but also appreciated learning new things. Like, I didn't really know about the House of Holbein before. I mean, I knew a little bit about how he picked her because of the painting and then rejected her when she got there. But that was another aspect I didn't know. And so even my mom, who wasn't, you know, she knows the rhyme that basically everybody knows, but it was even exciting for her to then learn things. And she asked me, she's like, is that true? And I'm like, yeah, that is true. And so even people who aren't familiar with the Six Wives, they're still going to have a good time at the show, right?
Oh, absolutely. I have friends coming in, they'll ask this, they're like, should I do research? Am I going to get it? I'm like, you can come in knowing nothing and you'll get a lot of the jokes. You'll have a really good time. I think it's just, you know, if you have like read Wolf Hall or like watched The Tudors or something, there might be a couple of extra, like a little Thomas Cromwell reference that you might really enjoy, but you don't need to know anything. The show gives you all the info you need, you know, even if you know nothing about history, even if you've never heard of Henry VIII, which seems unlikely, but still, you know, you get that story through the show.
And why do you think that this was such a good time for this story to be told on Broadway?
For a few reasons. I mean, I think historically, so we know about Henry as this powerful man who took whatever he wanted, including like these women who didn't have control over their lives and bodies. I mean, even in that sense, it's a great show to be happening right now. But I think what's so exciting about re-examining this story is that these women, all six of them, were really remarkable and actually were total trailblazers. Like the things that they did. For instance, I mean, Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn, between them, changed the course of history. If Catherine of Aragon had agreed to the divorce as Henry wanted, he wouldn't have been forced to break with the Catholic Church and begin the Church of England. If Anne Boleyn hadn't been so persuasive, like none of that would have happened. So we can look at it as Henry making those changes, but it's actually how badass these women were, how like strong-headed these women were, and like how much that changed British history is kind of incredible to think about.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Benita. And as you go out, we are going to play a video. So everybody sit tight, and thank you again.
We are so excited about this. The cast of Six.
Seeing so many people along this the journey of Six, it's so lovely, and we feel so supported of coming back this time round, and it really symbolized like all the happiness that we're literally all feeling about being back. It's just so nice.
The music was really special and it's extraordinary.
It was so empowering and awesome.
We've been like waiting to see this like since it came out from London. I just really enjoyed coming here tonight, and I hope I can see it again.
I literally cannot tell you how many times I have listened to this album.
Oh my gosh, how empowering.
The energy. My favorite part was all of the show. All of it. Concur. Everything about the show has just been amazing. It's real empowering.
I mean, honestly, the whole thing, it was phenomenal.
I love it. It's so happy and it carries such an amazing message.
It was just such a great experience.
It was my first Broadway show that I got to see. It was amazing.
We love Six.
Yeah, every single moment was either hilarious, heartbreaking, or just the most fun I've had in a theater in a long time.
When the Queens came out for the first time, the crowd just went wild. The energy in that room is insane, and it's unlike anything else I've ever seen. It's not like a musical like I Know It. It's brilliant.
I think you should come into Six ready to sing and dance, even if you don't know the words.
Yeah. All of live theater is imperative to the entire country and the world because we need to tell these stories and these stories need to be told.
I really think it's a message of really standing in the shoes of who you are.
Just have a really, really fun night out, celebrating the incredible, powerful women on stage and hopefully come away feeling super uplifted and joyful.